Okay, folks. So Bob Ferguson here, and I have my friend John Hibbs from the island of Guernsey in the English Channel. John was referred by a mutual friend. He said, "You two would really get along well. You should talk to John." I had no idea why I should talk to John, but after talking with John, I said, okay, that person was really right. In fact, I was so excited about what John has done and the tools that he has that I thought I would do this Life with Bob episode primarily for my business friends. But you know what? I'm thinking that these tools would also be really great for nonprofits, any organization that wants to actually look at their structure and improve. So, John, very delightful to have you with me today.
Thank you, Bob. That is one of the best intros I've ever received. So many thanks for that.
Well, wonderful. So John is the president of CoEfficient, which is his business. And I'm just going to turn it over to him to explain a little bit of the backstory. How did he get here? And then we'll have a little presentation so he can show you how they roll as a company. So,
Yeah,
John.
thank you. Thank you. I'm from Guernsey, which is a very small island in the English Channel, population of 60,000, about 24 square miles. So I think that makes it about the same size as Manhattan. But we don't have any skyscrapers.
No, no,
Um, we've got
probably a good
cows and
thing,
fields.
right?
And it's a lovely place to live. So, I mean, behind my bookcase here is the Atlantic Ocean. So it's about 30-second walk away. And it's a pretty cool place to live. So my whole life, I've sort of started and run small businesses and teams and whatnot. And over that sort of 20-year period, I really have become acutely aware of just how important people are inside organizations. I know that we've got systems and processes and stuff around them, but actually really all businesses are just teams of people trying to improve the lives of other teams of people. And they give all these different groups of people names. So we've got a business is a group of people, like customers, that's another name for another group of people. Communities is another group, another name for groups of people. Education, government, they're all just people kind of bumbling along in life and trying to do the best they can. I'd always wanted to have a company that tried to do some good in the world around improving the lives of employees inside workplaces and being acutely aware of the connection that, if you have a happy member of staff, that's absolutely brilliant for your organization because happy workers are usually more productive, but they go home at the end of every day, don't they? And they go home to their families, and happy people create happy families become happy communities, and that's, Bob, where you and I live. So it's key. CoEfficient was founded last year. I was very lucky enough to have a couple of really clever friends. My father used to say to me when I was growing up, if you're the smartest person in the room, John, you're probably in the wrong room. And
That's right.
yeah, it's quite right, isn't it? So I've got two really clever friends. One of them's got a PhD from Oxford. He's a data scientist. And we came together and thought that we could build a tool, a platform that could really help businesses analyze their performance, but from the human perspective. So businesses are very good at monitoring things, aren't they, and measuring things, and money. We obviously keep an eye on the finances, and everyone in business will be keeping a monthly or weekly, sometimes even daily check on their finances. And we measure things like sales and marketing and all this sort of stuff. You should be doing the same thing for your people. How are they feeling? How's their mental health? What's their perception of the organization? You may not need to be keeping a sort of a monthly or daily check, but it's something that you should definitely have some metrics around, and that's what we provide.
That's great. That's great. Well, that's why I was so thrilled, because people really are the fundamental asset of any organization, right? Without people, it'd be a little hard to have the organization.
Yeah. Um, People are often seen as a commodity. There are in your financial statements, they're actually an expense, a line item of it as an expense. That's always upset me. They are your greatest asset. Anyone who's had children or has been a human being will know that if you feel like you belong to a group and you feel emotionally safe, and it's okay to kind of make mistakes, someone's going to be there to help pick you up and dust you down. then you're a lot more creatively free to come up with good ideas and to try your best. And when you're encouraged as well, these things make a massive difference. And we don't see enough of it, I think, in the workplace. There are some amazing firms out there doing some great work that are aware of these things. But when you hear horror stories, don't you? You know, just the other week I was reading about how I think it was Google or Microsoft were laying off staff via an email that came out during the night, and it's just
That's right. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the whole structure of what you do, and let's get to it.
Yeah. So I've got a presentation which I'd love to show you, Bob, if you're interested. You can see that, can't you?
Yep.
So what we do is we measure organizational performance from the human perspective. And there's a reason we do this, and it's because we believe all businesses are just groups of people, as we've just discussed. We were very disappointed to discover that 79% of people are disengaged at work. This is according to Gallup's global survey. Actually, our measurements don't show it quite as high as this, but this is, you know, a global survey. This number is just far too high, because what it really means, Bob, is that 4 out of 5 people are turning up to work just for a salary, not to do something fantastic and build a cathedral and something they're very passionate about. It's bad for businesses, because if you're disengaged at work, you know, you're just not productive enough. But it's also really bad for the employee, isn't it? Because if you are unhappy or disengaged at work, you're much more likely to be suffering with your mental health to some degree. And as we said earlier, we want those happy workers to go home to their families, create happy communities. I actually think that a happy, engaged workforce is probably the largest wealth creation opportunity we currently have, not just for our businesses, but for our communities as well. Now, in the UK government have been looking into this for a few years. This is a report from 2017, which outlined just how damaging mental health can be inside workplaces. But the report also made some interesting recommendations that resonated with the guys who founded CoEfficient, and that was that digital tools could be an enabler of change within inside workplaces. That there should be a firm evidence base that is accessible for both employers and employees. And these days, firms should be routinely monitoring for employee mental health and well-being. And when we read these recommendations, we thought, gee, that's interesting. That's something that actually we could build. Looking into it a bit further, Deloitte's issued this report, 2020, and outlined the costs to business for poor mental health, and they estimate it's about £1,700 per employee per year. So that's the costs of absenteeism, presenteeism, disengagement, making mistakes, putting things off till tomorrow, not really caring, etc., etc. And you know as well as I do that if you're unhappy at work, you are much more likely to exit in one way or another. And the cost of recruiting staff is another massive cost that is often really not fully understood. It's not just these 2 reports. There are dozens and dozens out there that all tell the same story. And when you take these figures and you plug them into a typical business, let's say you've got 150 staff, you could have as many as 119 who are disengaged. The cost of mental ill health can be as much as $250,000, and staff turnover at 15%, is $780K. Now, all told, that's a hidden loss of over $1 million. It doesn't appear on your financial statements very often. Nobody gives you an invoice for it. It just vanishes into thin air. So wouldn't it be fantastic to do something to reduce those costs by fundamentally understanding the performance of your business from the best data source available, which are the people inside the business, and then using that data to surface latent insights and make much better people-focused decisions? And what if you could do that affordably and easily? Because when we think about this continuum between people hating their job and loving their job and all of those stages in between, wouldn't it be fantastic to create environments that encourage people to float to the right rather than allow them to slide to the left? Because even a small percentage improvement could have a huge cost saving for companies. So when you started look at the latest business thinking out there, the corporate governance codes from around the world and the likes of Harvard and McKinsey's, you'll notice that they talk about these 19 categories again and again and again around human-centric organizations. And they range from some, soft skills, so or soft categories like belonging and emotional safety. But they touch on more hard business categories as well, like risk and strategy and operational efficacy. Then over the top of that, we worked with, there's a national charity in the UK called Mind, and they're a mental health charity. We worked with them to come up with 5 categories around mental well-being. We took all those categories, we designed a survey around them to score all of those categories. And the survey gets deployed to all the staff inside an organization. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. It's very, very easy to do. We run that data through what we call a data matrix, which replicates the connections of all those categories, display the results via our CoEfficient success dashboard. And then the next step is quite an interesting one, because we very often do not work directly with companies. We like to work via business consultants, coaches, advisors, and people like that. And there's a reason for that. I mean, you're an experienced businessman, Bob. You've had lots of organizations that you've dealt with over the years, and no two are ever the same. There's a million different businesses with a million different leaders in a million different locations with a million different cultures. And there's many, many ways of getting good results. So we don't want to be in advisors. We need to work with the coaches who are working with the businesses that know them more intimately. We're very good at data. So that's what we want to do. Give you great data. And I'll show you some in a minute. And then the coaches can design a bespoke plan for moving forwards with the organizations that they're working with. So this here is a very quick look at our dashboard and how it works. You can see the survey's been deployed via a mobile phone. Very simply, green is good, red is bad. You can see these are the categories along the bottom here. We can drill down into the categories to see the statements. So we're asking in and around each category. We can look at, drill down into the demographics of each organization. So this is looking at gender. Now we can see how the different departments are feeling. The whole platform works on comparisons. And then we can also compare you to other organizations in our data pool and in your sector as well. It's important to note that scoring departments or companies or people is really interesting, because if I said to you, Bob, you've got a score of 6 out of 10, you might go, well, 6 is better than half. That's okay. But if I can say to you, you're a 6, but everyone else is a 7, that gives you some context. And if I can say, well, you were a 6 today, but 6 months ago you were a 5, that's really great, because you're trending in a good direction. So that's how the whole platform works. We're very lucky. We've got a couple of PhD people who work for us. Boffins is an English sort of.
I had to ask now, John.
Yeah.
What's a boffin?
Yeah, so it's an English word for sort of a clever, sort of nerdy person. It's a little bit. We're joking a little bit when we say it. It's a bit sort of cheeky, but it's all in good spirits. The whole platform is 100% anonymous. There's a lot of fear riding around in organizations, and people, don't want to say the wrong thing, and they want to get along with people. Sometimes they aren't totally honest. So we don't collect email addresses, we don't collect names, we don't allow you to drill down below 3 employees on the dashboard. Anonymity is built in because we want people to feel safe, and the whole platform is really, really very easy to use and to set up. So we're looking to work with firms that are already interested in well-being and performance, who want to run sustainable businesses that are plugged into the communities in which they sit. And during these economic times, Bob, I've just got one eye on the bottom line. And that is my little presentation over.
Well, that is really, truly exciting and remarkable, John. So you said you had an example. Could you have?
Yeah.
You can show us.
Yeah.
Let's go do it.
I'd love to. Right, here we are. So this is real, live, absolute, honest data that we've collected. All we've done is we've just changed the names of the company. So this is quite interesting. So what we see here is we've got an overarching score of the company, 70%, 70 out of 100, which we call the CoEfficient score. So that just gives you one figure, bang, at the top. But then we come down a level and we can answer, do your staff think you have the right people at the right time doing the right thing? A comprehensive plan for the future and that they know and understand, and are the business processes fit for purpose and sustainable? And then we come down another level and we see here are the 19 categories that we spoke about earlier, and the mental health categories here. And the way that this works is we can actually drill down into these categories and we can see the actual statements that relate to each category. What's interesting with this data is at first glance, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? Lots of green, so pretty good, but an undercurrent of red here. So when we start comparing different departments, let's have a look at the partners. So these are obviously the senior guys, the people who are being paid the most, in charge of the organization. And they really couldn't be much happier. Lots and lots of green, scoring very highly. Let's compare them to management, of which there are 15 people in this organization. And it's a very different picture, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
And so if I drill down into, say, emotional safety, for example, we can see some of the statements that we're asking people to agree with or disagree with. So this group of people are saying that their good work and effort are not positively acknowledged by their colleagues, nor by the leaders. People are not civil and respectful. There's limited support measures in place, if any, and they do not feel emotionally safe at work. So quite telling. And you think this is exactly the same organization, like in the same community, two different groups of people who feel completely different about the organization that they're in. And a lot of the questions that we ask are not, how is the world affecting Bob or John? It's what are John and Bob's views about things that are going on inside the company? It's just a totally different perception. So let's have a look at some demographic data as well. So this is another visual representation of the same data. So you can see here all the different departments. The scores on the left-hand side here. So the higher the blobs, the better the score. The bigger the blob, the more variance in answers. For example, if we find a sort of big blob here, it means that relational trust in the PA department, they've got a variance of scores. They're not thinking all identically. In accounts, these scores, a lot of these people are scoring, almost exactly the same. There's only 3 people in accounts. You don't have a lot of people. When you have a large group of people, you're going to get some variance in how people feel and think. So here are the partners, all up here, fairly tight, thinking everything's great. Here's the management, a lot lower, bigger blobs. Administration's not much better. The associates, who are probably the second in command, are edging up towards the height of the partners. And we're quite clear about this. CoEfficient is not the silver bullet. It's not you buy CoEfficient or you start working with us and all your problems are solved. We are a diagnostic tool. We come in and we check your temperature and we give you signposting to where you should maybe go and have a conversation and do a little bit more research. And then let's have a look at the comparisons here as well. So this is comparisons in the professional services. And actually, this is quite interesting as well, because this company sits at the top of the average, and actually there's a lot of companies below them. So even though they've got this management raft that are really, really unhappy, they're still better than some of the other companies that we've measured.
So in other words, you don't have to be bad in order to improve. You can be quite good. And using this analytical tool, you can find out where your weak spots are and do something about it.
Absolutely. It surfaces latent insights. Clearly here, if we go back to this first page and we go back to the partners, you can see that they're just completely out of touch. They don't know what's going on in the lower echelons of their company. So what this software is very good at doing is it's like surfacing latent insights, giving you a window into what's going on, an early warning system, if you like. And then we work with our advisors. They can sit down and go, right, well, let's talk to these middle managers. Let's find out really what would change the needle for them. Let's get the partners in, show them this data, make them aware, and we can start building in plans of moving forwards.
That's beautiful, John. Well,
thank you.
If someone wanted to engage with you, companies wouldn't typically work directly with you. They'd work through an intermediary who is familiar with your work.
Yeah, so
correct?
So usually it's via a coach or a consultant. Of course, we're very happy for companies to come to us direct, of course, and we can help you find a coach to suit any issues
Good.
that
Okay.
flag up. So we've got dozens of coaches that we work with already, and sometimes coaching companies that specialize in different areas. So some will be process driven, some will be purpose and values and culture driven, and others will be mental health driven. So we can find someone that specializes in an area of concern for you. You mentioned at the start of the talk, this isn't just about business. This is for any organization, any group of people that are looking to improve or looking to take a metric on where they are at the moment. We can work with them.
John, thank you for your time. This has really been most enlightening. Definitely,
Pleasure.
I'll be back with you, and I'm sure there'll be people in my little neck of the woods and across the country who I know who I'm going to hear this presentation.
Yeah, if we can help companies improve, if we can help companies look after their people, then we're doing a good thing out there. So I'd be really pleased with that.
Good. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.